As much as I hate the Five Elders, I have to admit, they've got drip. Like, I know you see it. In a world full of pirates wearing sandals and t-shirts, 5 of the most powerful men in the One Piece world are dripped the hell out. And I wondered about it until, was it SBS 110? When we find out those suits are custom designed by like some cat mink named Nornio Nurmani from some Italy-coded boot kingdom, and he only makes clothes for them. And when I read that, I heard that no one else in the One Piece world can get that fit. That's exclusive drip. But that's when it hit me. This is why One Piece is so good at character design. Not because Oda makes the weirdest body shapes of all time, but the fashion is so good because it's so realistic. Not because the outfits are cool or they're something that someone would wear in real life, which of course they are. Because the clothes and brands in One Piece, like so many other elements of One Piece, are quietly mapping class, power, and globalization in almost the same way that clothes do in our real world. Today, my goal is to convince you that the logos in the backgrounds, the knockoff shirts, the uniforms, the tattoos, the stupidly expensive dresses, all of the clothes aren't just cool drip and background jokes. They're Oda's subtle way of showing us how money and power actually move in this world. And I promise you that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So let's start with something really stupid and small, like a t-shirt. Back in chapter 86 on the cover, Nami's chillin' wearing a t-shirt with a panda on it. It's cute drawn. She's looking at an orange, and if you're anything like me, you turn the page, you move on, you get to the story. But then in SBS, I think volume 14, Oda answers a question and says like, oh yeah, that's Doskoi Panda. It's a fancy clothing brand with a flagship store on Mirror Ball Island, and a single t-shirt can run you like 10,000 berries. You heard that right, 10,000 berries. For context, in the East Blue, you can feed yourself for a few days on like 100 berries. So for somebody to be walking around in a Doskoi Panda shirt, it's not just like a cute little vintage tee. It's a little bit of a flex. And what we're talking about here is luxury streetwear in an adventure pirate manga. And now let's put that next to a brand that we probably know a little bit more, which is Criminal. You can see the Crimin Star logo as early as volume 6 on an inflatable tube that Luffy's wearing. But later on in Fishman Island, we find out that it's a world famous fashion brand run by Papag. The starfish, who I personally found incredibly annoying, who is somehow the Virgil Abloh of the ocean. And his headquarters is literally a giant shell-shaped fashion house under the sea. When he takes his straw hats through his boutique, Nami tries to haggle down the prices. There's a dress that's priced at over like 20,000 berries, and Nami, the cat burglar, tries to get a steal of a deal at 10,000. And the clerk's all like, miss, that is less than half the price. Meanwhile, in chapters 611, 612, Papag is bragging that Crimin is even more prestigious than Doskoi Panda, and Doskoi is just his little rival from the surface. This is beef. It's brand segmentation between surface luxury and underwater couture. It's not just like some Oda drew some star and a panda for fun. Background is a functioning fashion industry. And just like in our world, when something gets big enough, you start getting fakes. So in SBS volume 14, Oda gives us Doskoi Panda, and that's Doskoi with a 1 instead of an I. In volume 27, he gives us Cyber Panda, which is a fake brand that's somehow even more expensive than the original. And we actually see Shoju, one of the Mont Blanc monkey guys, wearing a Cyber Panda shirt in chapter 235. It's such an on-the-nose parody of hype culture that you could drop it into a lecture of Naomi Klein's No Logo and no one would bat an eye. You got your originals, you've got your knockoffs, you've got parody brands that accidentally become premium, and it turns out that we have pirates literally wearing pirated merch. And these are real phenomenons from the real world. Economists call these Veblen goods. Products that become more desirable the more overpriced they are. It's all because a guy named Thorstein Veblen wrote The Theory of Leisure class back in 1899, talking about people buying stuff, not because they need it, but because it's expensive and everyone can see that. Doskoi Panda and Criminal are literally Veblen goods. The dresses, the shirts, they're stupidly priced, but that's the point. Nami wants that Criminal dress because it's fashionable, not because it'll give her a defensive boost or it'll help with her climate act. She's participating in global trend culture. And when Nami, who grew up begging, borrowing, and stealing for every berry, is now in a boutique trying to bargain down a dress, it's us watching her step into the world of conspicuous consumption. Of course, she's still Nami, so she's gonna finesse the price, but the desire is still real. And the knockoffs play into this system. Doskoi Panda with the 1 is literally the shirt you buy when you want the panda clout but don't have the money to afford it. And of course it makes sense. In a world of pirates, of course there's going to be pirating over intellectual property. What's the like meme question of like, you wouldn't download a car? You wouldn't download a Doskoi Panda? I would. I might. And these brands are really cool and interesting, and once you start looking at them, you won't stop noticing them. But the real magic to me is when you start noticing who gets to wear what. Because One Piece is a series that's incredibly on the nose about class, and Oda is ruthless with visual markers around class. At the very top, you've got the Celestial Dragons, and when they walk through the archipelago, they're not wearing Doskoi Panda or Criminal. They got the weirdest fits in the world. Full body, spacesuit outfits with glass bubbles over their head so they don't have to breathe the same air as anyone. I mean, St. Charlos literally looks like a grotesque astronaut clown. And that is the point. Like, I don't know if they think they look good, but that fashion is not about taste. It's about separation. They're literally saying people like us do not breathe the same air as people like you. And I hate to throw around the F word, but that's how fascism dresses. And above them in the social hierarchy, we get the 5 elders. The old guys in the simple dark suits and one guy in a robe. Doesn't look too flashy. But like I said at the top here, in SBS 110, Oda dropped a bomb. These suits are custom pieces made by Nyornyo Nyormani. I can't say it and not laugh. Obviously, it's a play on Giorgio Armani. He's a cat mink from the Nagagutsu Kingdom, or colloquially the Boot Kingdom, that is very clearly Oda being subtle about writing in Italy. But this guy's called the Emperor of the Fashion World, and he will only make clothes for the 5 elders. It means that even if you knew they existed and you had all the money in the world, if you tried to get their fit, they would say, nope. And that's beyond real world Dior or Gucci exclusivity. We've got real one of one, never sold, only for dictators fashion. And then in a line that confounds and just makes me so happy, Oda has Nyormani say, being naked is the true height of fashion. And it's great satire, but it's also a great reflection of like haute couture and high fashion in the real world. A top-tier designer selling insanely exclusive suits while claiming the peak of fashion is nudity. It's like if Armani said real style is not wearing anything, but then released a line of blazers that were only for Donald Trump. But you also see it that a lot of the fashion on red carpets or by people who want to make a statement is often very exposing of the body. And I think these different types of fashion are great ways of expression, but let's contrast that with the Marines. If you're a grunt in the Marines, you live by 3 words when it comes to fashion. Uniform, uniform, uniform. You got white shirts, you got blue neckerchiefs, you got caps with the Marine stamped across the front, and if you're a vice admiral or above, you've got an iconic justice coat that's draped across your shoulders like a cape. And that's the interesting differentiator. When you see that coat, you don't need a power level chart. You know that they actually matter. Kizaru with his coat over the yellow pinstripe suit, Fujitora with a full admiral uniform, and you can even see Smoker getting that coat after his promotion. That garment is a visual stat bar. When you notice it, it's not subtle and it's not supposed to be. It takes this concept of uniform and creates a brand around it. The Marine recruit, the grunt, has zero freedom in their outfit. Shirt's gotta be tucked in, standard issue, no flair at all. But as you get more powerful and as you climb the ranks, you can start bending the rules. Garp used to wear that really weird dog hat. Aokiji had his sleep mask and casual clothes under his coat. Kizaru basically looked like Mirror B from Pokemon Coliseum. And this rule kind of presents itself in their fashion. One that mirrors a lot of the actual policies of the Marines, which is that the stronger and more important you are, the more you can ignore the rules and still be in uniform. And it's a guy named Pierre Bourdieu in action. Bourdieu was a French sociologist, and in 1979 he published a book called Distinction. In that book, he said that elites use taste and subtle rule breaking to separate themselves from everyone else. If a random Marine grunt showed up in Kizaru's outfit, I think he'd get the boot. But Kizaru can do it because he has the status to back it up. And this exact same logic actually applies to pirates in the One Piece world too. It's not necessarily a rule, but it's the norm that low-level pirates generally look like scruffy classic pirate nobodies or wear a sort of like pirate-themed uniform for their crew. Like the Foxy pirates all rock shirts with Foxy's face on it, or like some foxy memorabilia, and numbers like there's some cursed Sunday League football team. The Sun Pirates and then Arlong Pirates get tattoos, and then in Arlong Park all wear tropical themed gear for whatever reason. And Whitebeard's crew kind of did the same. A lot of them have that crescent mustache Jolly Roger, or in Ace's case in the original, a full-on swastika. Yeah, after seeing that I was like, brother got what was coming to him. But the tattoo is the uniform. It's a permanent identity that they put on their body. And as you get higher and higher in the power structure, pirates turn their own bodies into these brands. Like Doflamingo's pink feather coat is probably the most recognizable piece of clothing from all of One Piece. Big Mom not only turned a pirate hat into a living weapon, but her giant pink polka dot dress looks like someone weaponized a birthday cake. And it's such an interesting fashion choice because she kind of teeters on this line of being like childish while also being terrifying. When we met Crocodile in Alabasta, he was dressed like honestly like a desert pimp. I hate to say it, but that's what I got. And Shanks is like cool, classic pirate. Sandals with the long cloak like he's going to the beach, strolling into Marineford, making everyone stop in their tracks. Which is juxtaposed to Mihawk, who's gothic, vampire, crucifix thing is like the most emo boy you've ever met. And Luffy with his iconic straw hat and red coat. And our protag is so iconic, in fact, that Bartolomeo starts selling merch in a cover story. His personal fashion and his brand become a commodity. That's exactly what happens to real-world tyrants and celebrities. After their time, or even during their time, their styles get turned into Halloween costumes and thrift store finds. But in the real world and the One Piece world, most common people don't have the luxury of expressing themselves through fashion. In Kokoyasi, Fuchsia, Syrup Village, most people just dress for work or the climate they live in. Makino wears a simple barmaid's outfit, Nojiko's got a tank top and a bandana, Gaimon wearing nothing but a treasure chest. Like, none of these common people that we interact with in this story are wearing Doskoi Panda or Criminal. They're just wearing clothes that can get dirty and hold up to their lives. And Bourdieu called this the taste of necessity. You pick things that work, not things that flex. And it's why there's one fashion development that Oda makes that to me is the most interesting. It's the JKS shirts that show up later along in the series. Don't ask me how this works, but JKS stands for Situation Explained Shirts. It's a brand in the One Piece world that Oda explained in SBS 79. On Fishman Island in chapter 648, you see people wearing shirts that literally say things like, "I will survive" during big moments. In Dressrosa, civilians are running around wearing shirts that are talking about Dressrosa's birdcage. It's an insane brand to drop in this story. A brand that transcends logic, but is literally just saying that characters are going to be wearing shirts that have direct commentary on what's going around them. And even though it's a few steps removed, kind of hot. It's streetwear. To us, it seems like a goofy Fishman Island trend that spread across the world, all the way from Dressrosa to lower ranked beast pirates who wear it. And you start seeing it with common people and it just bubbles up in power, while some things in fashion trickle down from aristocrats. And in the background, Oda is just quietly tracing the exact same patterns around fashion that we see in our own world. And it's easy to ignore this. Like, you might be watching this video, if you're still watching at this point, and thinking like, this guy is just overthinking some background shit. You're not wrong. But Naomi Klein argues that logos have colonized public space so much and so deeply that we almost don't see them anymore. And that's what got me thinking, like, Doskoi Panda is that in universe. Once you notice the panda, you keep spotting it. And I don't mean Panda Man, it's an entirely different video. On Nami's shirt in chapter 86, on Django's bowl, on the cover of chapter 129, near constant background signage, Grand Tesoro's rocking it in the film Gold, even in the Logetown set of the Netflix live adaptation. This panda is basically the Coca-Cola of the Grand Line. And on top of these corporate logos, you have the biggest brand indicator of all, pirate flags. Jolly Rogers operate as pure brand power. Tall ship with the skull logo, meaning implied. Big Mom had her flags over Fishman Island, and Luffy's raised his flag over all of the islands he's liberated. I mean, hell, even shooting down the world government flag at Eni's lobby. And then Bartolomeo's cover stories as a member of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, man, like, he really did turn Luffy's Jolly Roger into a business model. He's got stickers, toys, merch, and even burns Shanks's flag just to raise Luffy's. It's not just fanboy behavior, although it is fanboy behavior, like even more than fanboy behavior. The dude's got a complex, but it's brand warfare. It's what happens when a symbol becomes so popular that people will vandalize one just to show the power of the other. And then it starts getting really meta, because in our real world, you can buy Straw Hat flags or Doskoi Panda merch. I mean, I even have all of this like One Piece merch. I have a Straw Hat flag that I should display. I have a straw hat that I wear. Get in the comments if you want to see it. But inside the story we're watching, people are buying Straw Hat merchandise or Doskoi Panda knockoffs. And then out here, we're doing the same thing. It's kind of like One Piece is mirroring our consumer culture and being like, you know what you're doing, right? Because there's one last layer to all of this: soft power. When we think about power in One Piece, we usually think about haki or devil fruits or labor if you watch my videos. But Papag demonstrated a different route, because humans all over the world wear criminal clothes. Like, I was just looking at a list of all the people who've been seen wearing it. Yeah, like it's Tashigi, Khalifa, Zoro. Like, it's not just fishmen that are wearing criminal, but these are people that pay fishmen for designs, put a fishman's brand on their chest. And it's Fishman Island exporting style. It's Fishman Island exporting style rather than labor or slaves. And it's an inversion of the oppression we see in Arlong Park or Fishman Island. These types of soft power are real in the real world and obviously in the One Piece world. It's like Sora, Warrior of the Sea, the marine propaganda comic that we hear about from the North Blue. That shaped how kids like Law or Sanji saw pirates or Germa long before they ever entered a real war. And in that same way, brands and uniforms and flags shape how people feel before they even think. The Revolutionary Army has its dragon-like symbol. The world government has an iconic logo. The Yonko all have their flags. The Marines have their justice and their coats. And the Straw Hats have a straw hat. And these symbols are all brands competing for mindshare on the global stage. So when I say that I think One Piece has the best and most realistic fashion in all of anime and manga, I'm not just saying the character design goes crazy, although the character design does go crazy. What I'm saying is that in the background, Oda has quietly built an entire fashion ecosystem that works like a real economy and real culture. We have luxury labels and knockoffs, aristocratic custom suits and streetwear slogans, the taste of necessity for villagers and conspicuous consumption for elites. Like, I don't think there's another anime where you can start with a random panda on a character shirt in chapter 86 and then go through question and answers with the author in volumes like 14, 27, 53, 79, and 110 just to track fake brands like Doskoi Panda or Doskoi 1 Panda and Cyber Panda. And then step into Papag's shop in chapter 611, notice JKS shirts in chapters 648 and 785, hold yourself from laughing at Nyormani Nyornio Nirmani's existence, and then watch a main character merch shop emerge in cover stories from chapter 869 to 872. And then after all of that, end up talking very seriously about Veblen, Bordeaux, and Naomi Klein. But One Piece lets you do that. And I think it's wild. Like, yeah, the drip in One Piece is super fun. But what blows my mind is that in a world with rubber gods, dragon tyrants, and ancient weapons, the author still takes the time to show that people around here flexing logos, buying knockoffs, haggling over 10,000 berries over dresses, and turning these flags into merch, just like we would do in real life. So the next time you do your One Piece rewatch or reread, which we should all do every year, don't just pay attention to Luffy throwing hands. I mean, of course, watch that, but let your eyes drift to the corner. Look for the Doskoi Panda Bowl. Look for a little criminal tag. Maybe there's even a JKS shirt with a dumb slogan, or a cross-down tattoo you've never noticed. Or check the fit under that Admiral's coat, because that's where the world's quietly gonna tell you who has power, who might want it, and who will never ever be allowed to touch it. So that, more than anything I'd ever get from a character sheet, is why I think One Piece has the best and most realistic fashion in all of manga and anime.